In today's video, we're going to go through 90 things that we saw in the GTA 6 leaks. Now before we get into the video, I do need to state two clear things. Firstly, obviously I can't show the footage of the leaks. However, you can if you want to maybe perhaps find them online somewhere. I also need to say that all of this information came from Denso95 from Reddit. A massive thank you for allowing me to use this for my video, and you should definitely all go and show some love. The link is the pinned comment on this video. So without further ado, let's get into the list. In the leaks, we were actually able to see some Rockstar employees' names. There is a gang in the game called Guardia. We're not too sure where this gang is located on the map, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. There's different sorts of events that we can see throughout the game world. These are split down into interactable events, ambient events, secrets, and so on. From what Denso found in the leaks, the actual list of ambient events is very long, and you'll have things like random boat, trailer, car, hangouts. I'm very keen on the boat side of that. One particular event is called PGH Strip Club 2. One particular event is titled in a certain sort of way that could mean we could witness a strip club is being built over time. This of course leads to the fact that throughout our playing of the game, the cityscape itself may change. As we know from the Mile High Club in GTA 5, that never changed over time. But as we saw in Red Dead Redemption 2, buildings and things evolve over time. UFOs are back, skunk apes, and also Sun Lotion. Three very different things, but it'd be really cool to see some of these little Easter eggs maybe tie back into GTA 5, potentially the same UFO that we saw on top of Mount Chiliad. We can see massage parlors, bingo places, and hotels that look like from icons that we saw that they're actually visitable places. And I don't doubt that the massage parlors would be quite seedy. Next we have Ambrosia Farms, which looks to be some sort of happy plant growing place. I'm really not sure how far I can stretch my luck with the algorithm by saying certain things. Next we can see a reference to seagulls. Now this is either an animal in the game, but potentially also a sports team. Next we have the fact that the game will feature influencers. Now of course from the first trailer this is something that we managed to figure out relatively quickly, but we're still not sure to what extent influencers will actually be involved in the context of the story or the gameplay itself. I'm keen to hear what your theories are on that down below. You can possibly drink smoothies at fruit stands. This is very similar to the sort of stuff that we've seen in GTA 5 where you can pick up a drink, and the same in Red Dead Redemption 2. There's something called Easy Score in the massage parlor. This potentially means that we can rob anything that accepts cash, any sort of store that would take cash. Now it's very obvious that with GTA 6 being made in modern times, I doubt that there'll be a lot of emphasis on the cash system. Maybe there'll be ways to actually generate money or steal money through cards or some sort of wireless hacking technology, which is stuff that we have seen in the leaks. Obviously a lot of places in real life don't take cash anymore, but some places like massage parlors, car washes, etc. all do. Alligators will hunt other animals. There will be dogs with rabies. Malls are confirmed and pigeons can be found inside. Now for me this is really interesting. If you guys haven't seen the North Point Mall video that I did, it is linked down below. You don't need to click the banner now, but I did a whole video about how we could expect to see the North Point Mall in GTA 6. Malls are a very important thing when it comes to Vice City in itself, especially if we hark back to the old days of the original Vice City. So I'm really keen to see how Rockstar pulled this off. People will be able to pick their butt and ears in a low-key or subtle fashion, including boogers as well, which I think is really funny. It's definitely a piece of attention to detail that we didn't need, but all the more grateful that we have it. Lucia will have friends who can wait for her outside. Maybe it's a one-time event before a mission, or maybe it's when she goes into a certain location. Maybe if she just goes into any random location in the map, rather than other characters following you into locations, it makes a lot more sense sometimes for them to wait in the car or wait outside somewhere. So seeing that this is a feature they're introducing once again adds to the realism and immersion. Muggers are back in the game, so whether we'll see people mugging other people or potentially we could be mugged ourselves, that is a feature that they're adding back to the game, which is something that we've seen in GTA Online. Dogs going at it is apparently something that's also back in the game. Tools such as keys and lockpicks are hints for an expanded stealth system. This would be a nice little breakaway from just breaking into cars like we saw in GTA 5, and potentially mean we'll have a more diverse way to actually enter vehicles, maybe enter buildings without just smashing a window or dragging someone out of a vehicle. Next we'll be able to overhear conversations about specific things happening between other people. Now it's unclear whether this is part of a mission or if it's about an event that's happening nearby. There's definitely an emphasis on being able to hear other things happening around you in more detail. Once again, like I mentioned at the start of the video, this doesn't really have a lot of context, but it is a feature and a functionality set that was seen in the leaks. Forest figure hints at Bigfoot making a return. Obviously this is has been one of the biggest mysteries in the GTA universe. Some people say it's solved, some people say it's not. I guess we'll find out. The hunt continues. Apparently torture is being brought back, and it also happens in a warehouse. Very similar to what we had in the actual main story of GTA 5. I'm really interested to see if they go as far as they did in GTA 5. Next, we'll probably be able to own a holiday home or a second house or a hideaway or a second property to some extent. It looks like in GTA 6, especially from some of the information that we saw from the leaks and some also contextual knowledge to do with patents, etc., that Rockstar are definitely taking more of an emphasis with the properties and buildings in GTA 6. Of course, we have those rumors that 70% of the interiors will be enterable, yet to be determined, but this does kind of lean a little bit into that. Next, we have the inclusion of paddle boats, redneck yachts, and flexing artists. This kind of brings into the whole thing that I've been saying for about a year now. Boating is definitely going to be a huge part of GTA 6. Florida itself, especially Miami, the boating culture is so important to that way of life and that locality. So I do think that there's definitely going to be an emphasis on that lifestyle, which for me, if you guys know, if you've ever read my bio, I love boats. Next, we're going to have sand pyramids and tire swings. Now, tire swings and stuff like that in games previously, you see it a lot, but sometimes they're quite static objects. I'm really hoping the things that like hang from stuff are going to be a lot more realistic. Having things like tire swings that maybe if we shoot them, they spin around and go crazy. Stuff like that, just little physics attention to detail bits is something that I would love to be in the game. Apparently, we can find messages in a bottle. This seems like a really cool little Easter egg, or maybe an opportunity to unlock certain events, or maybe some of these messages just start new missions, or maybe they're just collectibles in themselves. I think this would be a really cool way to give off that island feel and tropical paradise aesthetic that we're hoping GTA 6 is going to bring us. Next, we'll be able to see missing person posters being labeled as secrets. Now, this is a really interesting dynamic, because it also gives us a separate little side task where potentially we can find missing people, and this kind of goes back into a little bit of the current GT Online game modes where we can be a bounty hunter, but obviously with a different end goal where you have to find the person and retrieve them. This kind of ties a little bit into the kind of gameplay style from Red Dead Redemption 2, so I really do think that this would be a really cool thing to add as a little set of side missions. There's an event line called Strange Animal Deaths. Snakes, bucks, and deers will be involved. Now, once again, this would be something that we're probably already seen in Red Dead Redemption 2, where there's different weird and wonderful events happening around the map, and as we saw from the GTA 6 trailer, there's definitely an emphasis on more diverse wildlife in the game, so these strange animal death events I'm sure will be really interesting to see when the game comes out. Next, we have libraries, sand cars, canyons, and hovercrafts. Now, hovercrafts is something that I've wanted them to bring back to GTA for such a long time, in particular the story mode, and also the sand cars. They were something that were really well known in GTA Vice City, and I think they play a really important role when it comes to the beach lifestyle of GTA 6. Next, we'll have fishing, basketball, BMXs, bungee jumping, and something titled Swamp Safari Crazy Golf. Now, 3v3 basketball has been rumoured for GTA 6, but there has been some theories that potentially it will get pulled from the final game. Once again, this is stuff that was referenced in the leaks. Just because it's in the leaks doesn't mean it'll be in the final game. Next, we will be able to see raccoons stealing food, whether that be from trash cans, whether that be from bins, whether that be from tables. We have no idea yet, but still, it's a cool little thing that they've added in. Number 32 is that bowling is back. Another side note here, Rockstar have always been really good at their mini games. In fact, some of their mini games I'd argue are better than some mainstream games out there. For example, in GTA 4, being able to play pool, the actual physics and the way that it worked was really good, especially for a game in 2008 where that was just a mini game inside it. Next, we have the Miami keys are 100% confirmed. This is something that isn't just pointed to once or twice in the leaks. This is something that we can see throughout the leaks, and of course we can also see it in the trailer. To be honest, if they didn't have the keys in it, that would be more of a concern than anything, so this one's not so much of a surprise. Number 34, we'll probably be able to buy a garage in the keys area. Now, I find this really interesting because actually in the GTA 6 trailer, in the keys area of the map, you can see there was actually a garage that had the door kind of open on it, and I think being able to like buy a garage, maybe even in story mode, in the keys area would be really interesting when it comes to storing not just cars and bikes, but maybe even boats as well. But here's to hoping. 35, of course, prisons. This is something that we saw in the trailer as well. Prisons are definitely going to play some sort of key emphasis role in the story arc from what we saw from the trailer, but also there's been a lot of theories floating around for years now that the next GTA entry would need some form of repercussion system for some crimes. Now, I'm not sure how they can do this without it becoming tedious, but I can safely say that we can trust Rockstar to get it right. Number 36 is that the second city in the map will be Port Gowhorn. This has multiple residential areas, districts, and police stations. Now, by looking at GTA 5, of course, we had Los Santos and we had Blaine County, but Blaine County itself wasn't a city. That was a separate designation of the map that had some really interesting and explorable areas, but overall it was relatively quite boring. Now, with one main city in GTA 6 and maybe a smaller city being Port Gowhorn, this will make GTA Online far more interesting. At the moment in GTA Online, obviously a lot of the properties that people buy are on the south side of the map. However, there are some weird missions where you have to go north of the map to complete them, and obviously a lot of people buy businesses in the north of the map because it's cheaper. But overall, there is no reason for people online to cross between these two key areas, mainly because the north of the map after 11 years is a little bit boring. So having a reason for you to cross paths with other players when going between two major cities will be a really interesting dynamic. Next, gangs and robbers will be seen doing robberies as random events at different stores, not needing any player involvement. Now, me outside looking in, just making a soft assumption here, I'm guessing that we're probably able to intercept, either steal what they've stolen or potentially return the money or whatever they've stolen for a reward. This is very similar to what we currently have in GTA, but I'm keen to see how Rockstar evolve it for GTA 6. Number 38, we have a Bonnie and Clyde mystery. Now, for those that don't know, back in the day, GTA 6 was internally referred to as Project Americas, and this is where we first started getting the rumours that it was based loosely on Bonnie and Clyde. So seeing Rockstar have some sort of Bonnie and Clyde mystery in the game further ties back into that theory. Next, you'll be pleased to know the Scarface Mansion exists, and it will be involved in a crime scene. I am so happy about this because the Scarface Mansion in GTA Vice City was such a really cool feature that I remember at the time when the game came out was such a really cool Easter egg, especially when you reference 80s Miami. So seeing that the Scarface Mansion actually exists in GTA 6 gives us all just another thing to look forward to. Also, as we can see in the GTA 6 trailer, it does look like potentially this is it. Really hard to say though. Next, we have an ancient labyrinth visitor center. Not really too sure what context to give that, so we'll just leave that there. In the game, we'll have the Far Right Militia, which is an extremist organization in the game. Next, we'll have a singing road, which is mentioned. Now, in my personal opinion, I'm not sure what they're referring to here, but in real life, some people call a singing road a road where it has like a rumble strip on it, and as you drive over these little bumpy strips, it creates sounds and it sounds like it's singing. I'm guessing this is something that they're referring to. Next, we'll be able to buy a safe house in Overtown. Of course, we have no idea where that is yet, but I'm sure we'll find out. There's an underwater research facility that exists, which I think is really cool. Next, we have a toxic floating trash island in the ocean. Now, this is something very interesting because Florida and Miami has been plagued with pollution in their waters for the longest time, and it's one of those things that they keep trying to battle, so this is definitely Rockstar just playing on that in the video game. There's different forms of art that we can see in the game, for example, using bench shadows, ramen noodles, and more. Next, cars could be possibly flattened by giant rocks, hinting at potential realistic car damage models. However, it is worth stating, as Denzo mentioned in the original post, it could just be for a random event. We have absolutely no proof it's for anything significant. However, if I do have one wish at the moment for GTA 6, it's that they introduce some of the car physics from GTA 4. Next, we have clams and wingsuits. Next, we have the Fairyland Forest Puzzle. Now, Fairyland is something that we've spoken about previously on the channel. It could be something to do with Disneyland. Once again, based on the theories we've seen so far, it doesn't look like there's going to be children in the game, so it could be a really weird dynamic where it's a Disneyland for adults, or it could be just a closed down, disused park. Next, we have the Bermuda Triangle submarine and Lost at Sea. This could hint towards a bigger oceanic part of the map, but at the same time, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts with Project Vice, the Bermuda Triangle needs to be in GTA 6. Like, coastal area Florida is one of the biggest mysteries out there, and I certainly cannot wait to see Fishy do a video on the Bermuda Triangle in GTA 6. Next, we have island camps. Now, this could be a reference to some offshoot communities that live on these small islands in the Keys, or potentially it could be something where we have an island separate, which is something like Guam in Red Dead Redemption 2. Too early to say, but still interesting nonetheless. Next we have the Sarah failed space launch engine. Now from everything we've deduced so far, Sarah is most likely NASA, and Sarah could stand for Space Exploration Research Agency. This strongly hints towards having a space center on the map, and of course where it's geographically located and supposed to be representing Florida, I'd find it really hard to believe that we wouldn't have some form of space center. I also think they'll probably play on some Elon Musk type stuff in the game. We know Rockstar's humour, I'm keen to see where that ends up. Next, we have the file size of the dev build was possibly around 80 gigabytes. Now, it is worth noting that dev builds, one, they have reduced textures, they also have certain functionality and features turned off. It's very realistic to assume that this could potentially be around a third to, if not maybe a quarter, of the size of the final game. Myself and others in the community have put our estimated guess somewhere between 200 gigabytes and 350 gigabytes for the final game. However, it is really difficult to say at this point, and we're not even just speculating here. It's just too impossible to say at this point. Next, we can see safes in the game. One is in the back of an office, and potentially these could be picked or opened in other ways. This could fit perfectly into the new stealth system that we've seen in GTA 6. Now, before we get to the next half of the list, I want to say a brief thank you to Venom UK Gaming. Venom are a company that have sponsored the channel now for around 6-ish months, and they make gaming accessories, whether that be controller chargers, whether that be tools to clean your PS5, whether you're an Xbox user and you need some accessories, or whether you just want some cool charging equipment for your VR headset. Whatever it is, definitely go and check out Venom UK to see if they've got it on their site. And if you use code Cyberboy, if you're based in the UK, you can get free shipping. Now back to the video. Next, we should be able to aim our weapons underwater and directional swimming, so we can swim backwards or to the side whilst aiming. This is something that's really important because currently when playing GTA, if you dive below the surface to do something, sometimes you have to come back up and re-dive to get the angle right to collect whatever you're getting in the water. The swimming physics in GTA 5 are acceptable, but they're definitely nowhere near where Rockstar could take it for GTA 6. Next, we have the fact that vehicles lean and move similar to GTA 4 when braking, turning, or speeding up. The vehicle physics feel like a mix between GTA 4 and GTA 5. Now, this is something that a lot of the community have hoped for. Obviously, some people prefer one over the other, but for me, the crash physics in GTA 4 were perfect, and the physics of our characters were perfect, but I did feel like the cars wallowed around too much, so having a blend between the realism of GTA 4 and the arcade drivability of GTA 5 would be just the perfect driving physics for GTA 6. Next, we have a feature that's kind of brought over from Red Dead Redemption 2, which is walking around with an openly carried gun could be enough to alert people. This definitely adds a whole different layer of how we approach missions and also how we approach potential just robberies when we're out and about in VICE City, and this is why some of the stealth equipment such as the hacking tools etc become a lot more important. Having different ways that we can do things rather than just pulling out a gun and people just pretend like you're not carrying an AR-15 sometimes can feel a little bit weird, so having some of this realism brought back in from Red Dead Redemption 2 is definitely something that's going to add a whole different layer of strategy to GTA 6. Public transport has those Rate Your Ride QR codes. Given how advanced the player's cell phones seem to be, we could be able to scan those, and as Denso says in his original post, if that's true, it does hint towards an expanded in-game internet system. The internet system in GTA 5 was genuinely really well thought out, and the same could be said for GTA 4. But of course, the internet today is completely vastly different from what it was even in 2013, so Rockstar will definitely have to revamp the browser experience in GTA 6. Like I've said repeatedly in videos before, and just to be very clear, there's very minimal evidence to support this, but it is entirely possible that Rockstar create their own app for us to actually browse the in-game social media, because having an app like TikTok built into GTA 6 but also having the UI to control it with a controller is a very weird dynamic, and I don't feel like it'd be as smooth as possible. A prime example of this, if you tried to control TikTok with your PlayStation controller, how annoying would that be? So I do believe it's possible that potentially we'd get a real world counterpart to our in-game app, whatever that might be. Next, the Vice City Metro seems to have 3 lines spanning over 24 stations, even different kinds of train cards depending on the line. Light blue stands for Vice City Metro, dark blue stands for Vice City International Airport, we believe anyway. There's also a yellow line which goes the opposite way from the dark blue line, and there may also be a grey line which is a regional/international train. This could potentially be to get us to a whole different side of the map. Next, we can see that all Rockstar studios are working together together on this project. There's animation work from Rockstar North, Toronto, Dundee and India. And since this was written, we actually have more confirmation that the Vice Beach area of the map is being worked on by the team in India. Next, credit cards called Shark seem to be a thing. Fleecer is also back, plus at least 2 more which I can't see well enough to name them. Now this is a very interesting thing. I do believe that a lot of the brands from GTA 5 and previous games will be coming back, but of course, as we saw from the leaks document, there are also some new brands being added back into the game. Next, we have Jason's special ability, which will be marking things of importance during a robbery. And Denso says he saw jewelry, a safe, and a security camera being marked. This looks like some sort of focus mode, where rather than having to hunt around for things to steal, it just clearly labels them on your screen. Next, you can buy gum from a gumball machine. This could be a good way to replenish health or maybe top up your special ability. Obviously, something like this isn't based in realism or immersion, but it's just a tactical thing to make the game more playable. What the gumball itself might do, we don't know, but of course, we're just speculating. Next, there's a mention of the USA and Canada on a sign, and the Eiffel Tower was being mentioned on a radio station. Surprisingly, there's many real-world names, nothing new in the GTA universe, however. Next, we have Wi-Fi hotspots. Now, how this will actually fit into the grand scheme of using your phone in the game would be very interesting. Maybe it's a tactical thing where if you're in an underground car park, you can't use your phone, for example. I do think this will add an extra dynamic to the game where you find yourself in situations where you need to call someone in the game, but you don't have signal. I'm not sure how this would fit, but I do think it's a really cool dynamic if it is relevant to the game. However, it could just be a blanket thing to make places look more realistic. A lot of restaurants or cafes say Wi-Fi hotspot on a sign outside. So do what you will with that information, still yet to be determined. Next is something that we've dived into quite a bit on this channel, but if you commit a robbery, cops won't show up immediately. It actually takes time for them to be dispatched. Also, when they arrive, they don't just start shooting, you can communicate with the cops. This makes the whole dynamic of committing robberies and crimes in the game far more realistic. And once again, it would definitely add another layer to the robberies in the game. More times means we can steal more, but also more time means that we can actually plan our getaway better. So really keen to see what extra layer of immersion this adds to the game. Next, we have the fact that we can possibly drive excavators in the game. Now for me, a lot of the utility vehicles in GTA 5 feel a little bit pointless because you can't use their features. Having something like an excavator, it would be pretty cool if you were able to actually dig stuff up. Really unlikely just because of how all the physics involved in that would work, but I do think it's cool nonetheless. Shooting someone in the head could sometimes still make them move around in a gruesome and way too realistic way before they bleed out. This is something that we saw in Red Dead Redemption 2, where the actual physics of combat looked far more realistic and believable, and this was definitely a fan favourite that I'm sure Rockstar will bring back in some capacity for GTA 6. Now of course we have hotels in the game, but there's also inns and places that we could potentially stay around the map. Now for me this is really interesting because over the past few years things like Airbnb have become really popular, and in GTA 6 it may serve a purpose where we do need to sleep to do something, for example to get our health to replenish in some way or some form. Like in Red Dead Redemption 2 where you have to set up camp to eat, but in a similar sort of way in the modern era you may have to go to an inn or to like an Airbnb style thing to sleep to progress throughout the game. I definitely think this makes the game feel far more immersive, and it does also hint at more believable and more explorable interiors. Next, there was a United States, Canada and Mexico flag next to each other next to the Vice City Neighborhood Community Center. Next, Denso says, I seriously think the map will be bigger than we think, and here are his reasons why. Mexico and Canada can be found mentioned or displayed multiple times throughout the leaks. There's many hints towards a big water part of the map. Me personally, I think this is probably more the bottom right side of the map, but I'm sure we'll see. Now on top of this, the actual coordinates we saw from the game engine actually generated us this, the community mapping project. Now it is worth stating here, and a lot of people have seemed to kind of blur the lines a little bit, this whole panhandle side of the map at the moment is just speculation. Obviously the rest of it is as well, but the rest of it's based off Rage engine units, which is basically a measurement system that tells us the locality of some parts of the features that we saw in the leaks. But this top half here is speculation. It is entirely possible that the map itself is potentially the same size as GTA 5's map, if not smaller, but there could potentially be other islands and other settlements away from the main island. Once again, this is simply speculating. This is not backed by facts or data. More so, it's backed by the fact that there aren't any facts or data to support it being there at all. Next, we have that Finland doesn't exist. Now, if you've actually watched through the leaks, you'll know what this reference is. I think it's a very funny one. Next, we have flashbangs and flashlights, which I think is really cool. The flashbangs in particular, I feel like at the moment a lot of the throwables in GTA 5 do relatively similar things with different purposes, whether they're triggered sticky bombs or they're just grenades. I feel like flashbangs and stunning your enemy is a really cool different added layer that we'll see. Next, we have lions or tigers existing in the game, probably only caged. This does hint at a feature that's been speculated at quite a lot in the community, which potentially will have a zoo in the game. But once again, speculation, definitely just speculation. One event is called Police Siren Abuse. Now this leaves a lot of room for speculation, but I'm guessing it's an event where someone's just honking a police siren and you have to turn it off or stop it or something like that. I don't know. Speculating. I'm keen to see what your guess is what that event could be down below. Next, we could see someone talking to someone else positively about a person and the other person giving a positive response back about it. This definitely does hint at more diverse conversations between NPCs. But you can also see in the code of the game that there's negative responses, there's positive responses, and different variations of this. This definitely hints back to what we saw in Red Dead Redemption 2, where we were able to have more complex dialogue with NPCs. Next, we can see that Lucia will be able to duck 40% lower than Jason, if Denso interpreted that correctly. But this does also lean into some other theories that we've seen that potentially player height, player size, and player build would genuinely add a bit more diversity to the way that we actually carry out the missions. For example, you may be too tall to duck behind certain parts of cover. And I feel like Rockstar will probably balance this out in the online side of the game, where potentially, being shorter, you can get behind any cover, but being taller, you can run for longer or each step is further. I feel like there's definitely some sort of way that this can be made way more interesting. Next, we can see that the Vice City members will be a sports team in the game. Next, we saw that the cars will behave differently on tarmac, dirt, deep gravel, and grass. Of course, they're the only ones that we saw in the leaks, but there's probably more that we can dive into. I feel like this is a feature that GTA has definitely missed for a while. Car behavior on different road surfaces has been in GTA games, but it hasn't been there to the point where it felt a little bit more believable. So I'm actually keen to see what it's like to drive on these different road surfaces. Next, a spear gun will most likely be usable in the game. Whilst most weapons aren't that effective underwater, a spear gun is. And once again, this is another hint towards more underwater content. Next, GPS tracker jammers will be a thing which are carryable via the inventory. Now, in my opinion, I think this falls into the whole stealing car thing. Whereas a lot of cars these days do have some form of tracker on it, and potentially you'll have to jam the tracker before lock picking a vehicle and stealing the vehicle or something like that. Of course, this is speculation once again, but it does feel like Rockstar are definitely paying more attention to the realism side of car robberies in GTA 6. Which brings us on to the next thing, immobilizer bypass. Now, I've explained before on the channel, but an immobilizer basically means that you can't start the ignition in a vehicle without the key being present in the keyhole itself. Which means that, for example, for us to steal some of the higher end cars, it could be a bit more difficult to actually steal these vehicles. So rather than you just loading up the game and being able to get the most expensive sports car, it's probably more realistic that the easiest cars to steal are the older tatty cars, and the brand new supercars are actually a lot harder to get your hands on. Next, we can also carry things like an auto dialer, a cut-off tool, binoculars, fire extinguishers, and pool cues. Next, we have golf balls, golf irons, golf wedges, golf putters, golf drivers, which probably means that golf is coming back into GTA 6. Now, there's a lot of golf courses around Miami, so I do think it's really cool that they're bringing this back. Weirdly though, this is not something that I ever really did in GTA 5, so I'm keen to see how maybe the golf course fits into the story somehow. Next, when we saw a player in the leaks sit on a bike, a text popped up saying discovered Sanchez livery. This means that we'll probably be able to discover vehicles and maybe unlockables for those vehicles in some way by finding them throughout the map. This also kind of lends back into potentially the idea that not every single vehicle can just spawn on the road. For me, this is something that kind of breaks down some of the immersion with GTA 5 that pretty much every vehicle just exists driving down the high street and can spawn anywhere. Having the whole idea that different parts of the map there will be special vehicles there makes everything a little bit more exciting. Next, Vanilla Unicorn is back as a strip club brand. Next, the player has their own inventory, but there's also a shared inventory between characters. For example, if Lucia is your partner, you can put a weapon and a few snacks into that inventory to make them usable for her as an example. This could mean that if we have to switch between protagonists whilst playing the story mode, we can actually put some stuff into the shared inventory, so when we switch, we're not having to replenish our health again, for example. We can pull from that shared inventory. Next, in one clip, the map only shows up after the player gets into a car. Potentially we won't have a permanent mini-map in the game. This also lends back into some of the ideas that potentially the actual map in the vehicle, like for example in first person mode, will actually just be the map on the screen. We're at a point where the resolution could be high enough to do that convincingly. Next, there will be serializable world events. This means that world events could have different stages to them. This could function like the Blue Man icons on the minimap from GTA 4 or the Strangers and Freaks missions from GTA 5, only that they are world events, possibly without a map icon. Now for me this is really interesting because a lot of the map icons that pop up that show a world event, although it makes it easier to complete them, it's actually really interesting that potentially world events could exist and it could actually take us years to find them as a community. Once again, that helps with the longevity of the game, but it also is a really cool additional function. Next we have beef jerkies in your pants. Now I asked Denso about this and he said I found something related to beef jerky, probably as a snack like snacking works in Red Dead Redemption 2 and GT Online. I just thought this was a really funny way of putting it in the list. Next, car parts will be a part of the world event and you'll be able to pick car parts up individually. Now, as we saw from earlier reviews of the leaks that we went through, there definitely seems to be someone in the game that has a bigger emphasis on cars, modifying cars, and maybe an auto shop of some sort. So the idea of being able to collect and find car parts throughout the map definitely adds back into this. Also, it kind of sucks that the only way that you can buy car parts in GTA at the moment is by spending sometimes a ridiculous amount of money at a Los Santos Customs. So having the ability for us to be able to source these car parts throughout the map somewhere is a really cool feature. Next, we have the fact that horses exist in the game and they are rideable. Of course, this all depends if they cut them out from the game. We know in GTA 5 there was originally supposed to be horses in the game, and we actually know this from Martin Madrazo's mansion where he has horse stables, and we were supposed to have horses in the game and a mission where we actually ride a horse away. But horses were actually entirely cut from the game, but with the hard work that they did in Red Dead Redemption 2, them adding it into GTA 5 is very likely, maybe not 100%, but it's a likely possibility. Now of course there's a lot of stuff here. Now obviously there's simple pieces of information, but there's also things that we can read between the lines on. But hopefully you found all of that useful. Oof, it's been a long one. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, please do make sure to like and subscribe, and of course make sure to go and check out and upvote the original article for this down below. And of course, if you're looking for PlayStation or Xbox controller accessories, check out Venom. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.
I'm just looking for a cheap thrill, put it on my neck. I keep doing this dance with